Dr. Zefkara pressed her three-fingered hand against the cool surface of her observation screen. The blue light hurt her large eyes, but she could not look away. For weeks, she had been studying the strange signals coming from the third planet in the Sol system, the planet the inhabitants called Earth. What she found there made no sense. The creatures on Earth, humans, they called themselves, were doing something no other species in the galaxy had ever done. They were playing war. Not real war. Pretend war. And they were very, very good at it. At first, Dr. Zefkara thought she was making a mistake. She watched as millions of humans sat in front of glowing screens, moving tiny soldiers across digital battlefields. They built armies from nothing. They planned attacks that would make seasoned generals weep. They fought battles across entire star systems, commanding fleets of thousands of ships. And they did it all for fun. "This cannot be right," she whispered to herself in her native tongue. Her assistant, a young researcher named Kolmos, looked up from his own screen. "What is it, Doctor?" he asked. "Look at this," she said, pointing to her display. "The humans have created something they call a strategy game. Watch what happens." On the screen, a human child no older than 12 years in Earth time was commanding an army of 10,000 soldiers. The child moved them with perfect precision, surrounding enemy forces and cutting off supply lines. In 20 minutes, the child had won a battle that would have taken real armies days to fight. "The child is gifted," Kolmos said. "No," Dr. Zefkara replied. "Watch this." She switched to another signal. Another human child, this one even younger, was doing the same thing. Then another, and another, millions of them, all across their planet, all playing the same games, all learning the same skills. "They are teaching their entire population how to fight wars," she said softly. "But they do not call it training. They call it entertainment." Dr. Zefkara spent days watching more signals from Earth. She saw humans playing games where they managed resources of entire planets. She watched them plan invasions across multiple star systems. She saw them solve problems that the galaxy's best military minds would struggle with, and they were enjoying every minute of it. The more she watched, the more worried she became. These humans had no idea what they were doing. They thought they were just having fun. But they were accidentally creating the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen. She watched a human teenager named Dong Hyuk command a space battle involving 300 ships. He won in 15 minutes using tactics that no military academy taught. When the game ended, he laughed and started another one. She watched a human woman named Sajin manage the economy of a galactic empire while fighting wars on 17 different planets. She did it while eating lunch and talking to her friends. She watched millions of humans share their strategies with each other through their global communication network. A new tactic created by one human would spread to millions of others in hours. Their entire species was learning from each other, getting better at warfare every single day. Dr. Zefkara realized something that made her blood run cold. The humans were not just playing games. They were running military simulations. Every game was a test. Every victory taught them something new. Every defeat made them stronger. They had been doing this for thousands of years, she discovered. Long before they had computers, they played war games with pieces of wood and stone. As their technology improved, their games became more complex. Now, with their advanced computers, they were simulating wars that spanned entire galaxies, and they were all volunteers. No one forced them to play these games. They chose to spend their free time learning how to fight. They paid money to buy better war games. They formed groups to play together. They held competitions to see who was best at commanding armies. The entire human species had turned warfare into their favorite hobby. Dr. Zefkara prepared a report for the Galactic Council. Her hands shook as she typed. She tried to explain what she had found, but she knew they would not believe her. How could they? No species in the galaxy's history had ever done anything like this. When she finished, she read her report one more time. It sounded crazy even to her. A species that trained for war by playing games? A population that learned military strategy for entertainment? Children who could command armies before they could properly walk? But the evidence was there. The humans were coming. They would achieve faster-than-light travel soon. Their scientists were already working on it. And when they joined the galactic community, they would bring with them the most dangerous skill any species could possess. They would know how to fight better than anyone else in the galaxy, and they would not even realize it. Dr. Zethkara sent a report to the council and waited. She knew they would dismiss it. They would call it impossible. They would say that no species could accidentally train their entire population for warfare. But she had seen the truth. The humans were coming, and the galaxy was not ready for them. Ambassador Veltar adjusted her ceremonial robes as her ship approached the human homeworld. Earth hung before them like a blue and green jewel, beautiful and peaceful. Her escort of 12 galactic council ships followed behind in perfect formation. This was routine, another new species to welcome into galactic civilization. The humans had achieved faster-than-light travel just months ago. Their first message to the galaxy had been simple and friendly. Hello, we come in peace. We would like to learn about you. Such innocent words, Veltar thought. Every new species said something similar. The Human Greeting Committee met them at a space station orbiting Earth. The lead human introduced himself as Dr. Miho Kim, their chief representative for alien contact. He was young by galactic standards, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Welcome to our system, Dr. Miho said in perfectly translated galactic standard. We are honored by your visit. The pleasure is ours, Veltar replied. The Galactic Council is eager to welcome humanity into our community. Dr. Miho seemed genuinely excited. He talked quickly about human culture, their art, their music, their literature. He invited the entire diplomatic team to visit Earth and see their cities. Everything seemed normal. For the first week, the cultural exchange went exactly as expected. The humans showed them their museums, their universities, their centers of government. They shared their technology freely and asked thoughtful questions about galactic civilization. They seemed like ideal candidates for council membership. Then Dr. Miho made an invitation that changed everything. This weekend is our global gaming convention, he said to Veltar over dinner. Would you like to see how humans entertain themselves? Veltar agreed, thinking it would be educational. She expected to see humans playing simple games, perhaps sports or contests of skill. She was not prepared for what she actually witnessed. The convention center was massive, larger than some cities on Veltar's homeworld. Inside, nearly 1 million humans had gathered. The noise was overwhelming. Everywhere she looked, humans were hunched over glowing screens, their fingers moving at impossible speeds. What are they doing? She asked Dr. Miho. Playing games, he said with pride. Strategy games mostly. Some are commanding armies. Others are managing galactic empires. Some are fighting space battles. Veltar stared at the nearest screen. A human teenager was controlling what appeared to be a fleet of starships. He was fighting another fleet in a battle that looked remarkably realistic. The teenager's movements were quick and precise. In minutes, he had destroyed his opponent's entire force. How long has he been learning to do this? Veltar asked. Oh, Jinwoo started playing when he was 6, Dr. Miho replied casually. He is quite good now. He can command up to 5,000 ships at once. Veltar felt her 2 hearts skip a beat. 5,000 ships? The entire Galactic Council Navy only had 3,000 ships total. She moved to another screen. A human woman named Yunji was managing the economy of an empire that spanned dozens of star systems. She was calculating resource flows, managing trade routes, and coordinating construction of massive fleets. She did all of this while chatting casually with friends. How realistic are these simulations? Veltar asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Very realistic, Dr. Miho said proudly. We spent a lot of effort making sure our games accurately model real physics, economics, and military tactics. The more realistic they are, the more fun they are to play. Veltar watched in growing horror as she moved through the convention. Everywhere she looked, humans were casually performing military and strategic tasks that would challenge the galaxy's best-trained professionals. Children who barely looked old enough to attend school were commanding armies with the skill of veteran generals. At one station, she watched a human named Taehyun explain tactics to a crowd of listeners. He was showing them how to coordinate attacks across multiple fronts while maintaining supply lines and managing troop morale. The crowd took notes and asked intelligent questions about logistics and strategy. Do all humans play these games? Veltar asked. Most do, Dr. Mio replied. We have been playing strategy games for thousands of years. It started with simple board games, but now we have these wonderful computer simulations. There are tournaments where the best players compete. The winner of this year's Grand Strategy Championship commands a simulated empire of over 10,000 worlds. Veltar's mind reeled. 10,000 worlds? The entire Galactic Council only governed 8,000 inhabited systems. As the day continued, she made more disturbing discoveries. The humans had created networks that connected players across their entire planet. Strategies developed by one human would spread to millions of others within hours. They shared tactics, discussed new approaches, and constantly improved their skills. She watched two teams of humans fight a massive space battle involving thousands of ships. The battle was so complex that Veltar could barely follow what was happening. The humans managed it effortlessly, making split-second decisions that affected the fate of entire fleets. When the battle ended, both teams laughed and congratulated each other. To them, it was just entertainment. They had no idea they had just demonstrated military skills that surpassed anything in the galaxy. That night, Veltar sat in her quarters writing her report to the council. Her hands shook as she typed. How could she explain what she had seen? How could she make them understand that humanity had accidentally created an entire civilization of military geniuses? She knew they would not believe her. The humans seemed so peaceful, so eager to cooperate. But she had seen the truth. Every human was a potential military commander, trained from childhood in the arts of war and strategy. And they had no idea how dangerous they truly were. The message from the Zephyrian Empire arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a scarred warship that had seen too many battles. The ship's captain, a veteran warrior named Grex, read the demands with the bored tone of someone who had done this hundreds of times before. By order of the Zephyrian Empire, all human colonies in sectors 7 through 12 must surrender immediately. You will pay tribute of 50% of all resources produced. You will provide workers for our mining operations. You will hand over your military leaders for questioning. You have 7 days to comply. The message was broadcast to every human world simultaneously, across the colonies. People stopped what they were doing and listened. Some were afraid. Others were angry. But most were simply confused. Dr. Miho Kim, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer, stood in an emergency meeting of human colonial governors. The room was silent as he finished reading the Zephyrian demands. What do we know about these Zephyrians? Asked Governor Park Soyoung from the mining colony of New Seoul. They control most of the outer rim, Dr. Mio replied, consulting his datapad. They have conquered over 200 systems in the last 50 years. Their military is considered one of the strongest in the galaxy. They have never been defeated. And the Galactic Council? Ask Governor Lee Kyung-go from the agricultural world of Green Valley. They will not intervene, Dr. Miho said sadly. The Council has a policy of non-interference in territorial disputes. They say it is not their place to stop the natural expansion of aggressive species. The room fell quiet again. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Humanity had been part of galactic civilization for less than 2 years. They had no powerful allies, no ancient treaties, no reputation to protect them. They were alone. What are our options? Asked Governor Kim Jisoo from the research station at Wolf Point. Dr. Miho sighed. We can surrender and hope they treat us well. We can try to negotiate and hope they will accept less tribute. Or, prompted Governor Park. Or we can fight. Several governors laughed nervously. Fight? Against the Zephyrian Empire? Humanity had barely 20 warships total, and most of those were converted cargo vessels with weapons bolted on afterward. The Zephyrians had thousands of purpose-built warships and centuries of military experience. But Governor Lee raised his hand. If we're going to fight, we need time to prepare. Can we delay them somehow? Dr. Miho thought for a moment. I could send a message saying we need time to consider their generous offer. Most species take weeks to organize a proper surrender ceremony. How much time could you get us? Asked Governor Kim. Maybe 3 weeks. Governor Park laughed. 3 weeks to prepare for war against the strongest military force in the Outer Rim? What can we possibly do in 3 weeks? Dr. Miho was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up with an expression that none of the governors had seen before. It was the look of someone who had just remembered something important. We can do what humans do best, he said quietly. We can play the game. That afternoon, Dr. Miho sent a message to every human world, every space station, every ship in the fleet. The message was simple. Attention all citizens. We need volunteers for a special project. If you have experience with strategy games, fleet combat simulations, or resource management games, please report to your local coordination center immediately. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, millions of humans had volunteered. They came from every world, every profession, every age group, teachers and students, farmers and engineers, children and grandparents. All of them had one thing in common. They had spent years playing strategy games. What happened next would have seemed impossible to any other species in the galaxy. Humanity activated something they called their gaming networks. Communication systems originally built to let humans play games together across vast distances. But these networks were more than entertainment systems. They were the most sophisticated command and control infrastructure ever created. Within days, human volunteers had formed into command structures that spanned dozens of worlds. Admiral Park Jiho, a former cargo ship captain who had spent 30 years playing space combat simulations, found himself commanding humanity's entire fleet. General Kim Soo-min, a teacher who held 17 different strategy game championships, was put in charge of ground forces. But the real magic happened at the tactical level. Humans who had never seen real combat began planning operations with the skill of veteran commanders. They had learned their skills in games, but those games had taught them real lessons about logistics, timing, and coordination. Commander Hyojin Song sat in the tactical center on Earth, surrounded by screens showing the positions of every human ship and base. To her, this looked exactly like the galaxy-spanning strategy games she had been playing since childhood. The only difference was at this time, the pieces were real. Zephyrian fleet detected entering Sector 9, reported her aide, Lieutenant Kim Dong-hyuk. Hyojin smiled and began moving her forces. She had fought this exact scenario thousands of times before in simulation. She knew exactly what to do. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn that humanity's 3 weeks of preparation had not been spent in fear or desperate diplomacy. They had been spent turning reality into the ultimate strategy game. And humans were very, very good at winning their games. Admiral Krex had conquered 47 star systems in his long career. He knew the rhythm of war like a familiar song. First came the threats, then the fear, then the desperate negotiations, and finally the surrender. It was always the same. As his massive fleet of 800 warships approached the human colonies, he expected nothing different. These humans were new to space, weak and unprepared. They had agreed to meet his forces at the border of Sector 9, probably to formally surrender and beg for mercy. Admiral, his communications officer reported, the human fleet is approaching our position. Krex looked at his tactical display and almost laughed. 23 ships. The humans had brought 23 small ships to face his 800 massive warships. It would barely qualify as target practice. How long until we are in weapons range? He asked. 14 minutes, sir. Open a channel to the human commander. Let me hear their surrender offer. The human face that appeared on his screen was young and calm. The nameplate read Admiral Park Jiho. The human looked more curious than afraid. Admiral Krex. Park Jiho said politely, we are here to discuss the terms of engagement. Krex blinked in surprise. Terms of engagement? You mean terms of surrender, surely. No, Park Jiho replied with a small smile. We are here to fight, but we want to make sure both sides understand the rules first. Rules? Krex's voice rose an octave. This is war, not a game. Of course it is, Park Jiho agreed. But even wars have rules. May we begin? Before Krex could respond, the human ships began to move. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The human ships did not charge forward in a brave but hopeless attack. They did not try to retreat to a better defensive position. Instead, they scattered in a pattern that made no sense to traditional military thinking. What are they doing? Krex demanded of his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. Their formation appears random. But it was not random. Commander Kim Soo-min, watching from her ship, was implementing a strategy she had learned in a game called Fleet Commander, Galaxy Edition. She had played that scenario thousands of times, a small force against a much larger enemy. The key was not to fight fair. The human ship split into 5 groups and began moving in complex patterns around the Zephyrian fleet. They were too small and fast for the big Zephyrian warships to target effectively, but they stayed close enough to prevent the enemy from using their most powerful weapons without hitting their own ships. "Sir," the tactical officer called out in alarm, "they are jamming our communications. Each enemy group is broadcasting on different frequencies. Our ships cannot coordinate properly." Krex stared at his display in growing confusion. The human ships were moving like dancers, weaving between his vessels with perfect timing. Every time his gunners tried to target them, the humans were already somewhere else. And somehow, they were cutting his fleet into smaller pieces, isolating groups of ships from each other. "How are they doing this?" he muttered. The answer was simple. Lieutenant Hyojin Song, coordinating the entire battle from her command ship, was treating this exactly like the multiplayer strategy game Star Tactics Online. She had played this map configuration hundreds of times with friends. The key was to use superior coordination to overcome superior firepower. "Group 3, execute Maneuver 7, she said calmly into her headset. "Group 5, begin flanking pattern Delta. All units, remember to maintain communication discipline." Her voice was steady and professional, as if she were giving instructions in a classroom rather than commanding a battle that would determine humanity's fate. On the Zephyrian flagship, alarms began blaring. "Admiral, enemy torpedoes incoming from multiple vectors." "Impossible," Krex shouted. "Those ships do not carry heavy torpedoes." But they did not need to. The humans were using their ships like pieces in a chess game, positioning them perfectly to create crossfire patterns that turned the Zephyrians' own size against them. Large ships that could not turn quickly found themselves facing attacks from directions they could not defend. "Sir, we are taking heavy casualties. The enemy is targeting our engine sections with surgical precision." Krex watched in horror as his proud fleet began to fall apart. Ships that had conquered star systems were being disabled by vessels barely a tenth their size. The humans were not just fighting, they were playing, and they were winning. "All ships, emergency retreat pattern," Krex ordered, but even retreat became impossible. The human ships had positioned themselves perfectly to control every escape route. They moved like a pack of wolves, herding the Zephyrian fleet into a smaller and smaller space. 18 minutes after the battle began, Admiral Krex found himself surrounded by disabled ships and debris from his once mighty fleet. Of his 800 warships, less than 200 were still capable of fighting, and the humans had not lost a single ship. "Admiral Krex," came the calm voice of Park Jiho over the communications channel. "Do you wish to continue the engagement?" For the first time in his military career, Admiral Krex had no words. He looked at his tactical display, then at the young human face on his screen, then back at the display showing his scattered and broken fleet. "How?" he whispered. Park Jiho smiled kindly. "We have been practicing." Dr. Zefkara stood before the emergency council session, her 3 hearts beating so fast she thought they might burst. The great chamber was filled with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Everyone was talking at once, their voices creating a chaos of fear and confusion. "Order!" shouted the council chairman, striking his ceremonial gong. "Dr. Zefkara will now present her findings about the human military capabilities." The chamber fell silent. Every eye, tentacle, and optical sensor turned toward her. Dr. Zefkara activated her presentation display and took a deep breath. "Honored representatives," she began, 3 months ago, I warned this council about humanity's unusual military preparations. You dismissed my report as impossible. Today, I stand before you to explain how the Zephyrian Empire, the strongest military force in the Outer Rim, was defeated in 18 minutes by 23 human ships. A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the chamber. The Zephyrian defeat had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. No one understood how it had happened. The truth is simple but terrifying, Dr. Zakara continued. Humans do not treat war as play. They treat play as war. She activated her first display, showing footage from human gaming conventions. For thousands of years, humans have been accidentally training their entire population for warfare. Every child who played with toy soldiers, every teenager commanding digital armies, every adult solving strategic puzzles. They were all preparing for this moment without knowing it. Representative Mortav from the Altarian Republic raised one of his forearms. You're saying they trained by accident? Not accident, Dr. Zakara replied. Evolution. Humans developed a culture where strategic thinking became entertainment. Their games became more complex as their technology improved. Now their simulations are more accurate than our military training programs. She showed battle footage from the Zephyrian conflict. Watch how they fight. These are not random tactics. These are strategies perfected through millions of hours of practice. Every move has been tested, analyzed, and optimized. The chamber watched in stunned silence as human ships danced around the massive Zephyrian fleet like children playing tag. The movements looked almost playful, but the results were devastating. How many humans can fight like this? Asked Representative Yelkos from the Trade Federation. All of them, Dr. Zakara replied. Our intelligence shows that over 90% of humans have played strategic games since childhood. Their entire species has been trained for warfare through what they call entertainment. She clicked to her next display, showing human communication networks. But the real danger is their coordination system. What humans call gaming networks is actually the most sophisticated command structure ever created. They can coordinate military actions across hundreds of worlds in real time. General Thrax, the same military leader who had laughed at her original report, stood slowly. His face was pale. Are you telling us that every human civilian is a potential military commander? Yes, Dr. Zakara said simply, and they are better at it than our trained officers. The chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Some representatives called for immediate military action against humanity. Others suggested diplomatic solutions. A few demanded that their own species begin similar training programs. There's more, Dr. Zakara said, raising her voice above the chaos. The chamber quieted again. After their victory over the Zephyrians, humanity's response was unexpected. She showed footage from the aftermath of the battle. Human ships were providing medical aid to damaged Zephyrian vessels. Human engineers were helping repair disabled enemy ships. Human doctors were treating wounded Zephyrian soldiers. They won the battle, then immediately began helping their enemies, she explained. Admiral Park Geo personally ensured that all Zephyrian survivors received proper medical care. Representative Quintar from the Mining Guild seemed confused. Why would they help those who attacked them? Because, Dr. Zakara said, to humans this was just another game, and in games you help other players improve, so that future games will be more challenging and fun. She showed the final piece of footage that had shocked the galaxy. Captain Kim Dong-hyun, humanity's new military liaison, standing before the defeated Zephyrian fleet and making an offer that no conqueror in galactic history had ever made. Would you like to learn how he did it? Captain Kim asked with a genuine smile. Our gaming networks are open to all species. We can teach you our strategies and tactics. It is actually quite fun once you understand the rules. The chamber was dead silent now. Everyone was trying to process what they had heard. Dr. Zakara looked around at the faces of galactic leaders who had suddenly realized their universe had changed forever. Humans have not just mastered warfare, she said quietly. They have made it entertaining. And now they want to share that knowledge with everyone. What does this mean for the galaxy? Asked the council chairman. Dr. Zakara closed the presentation and faced the assembly. It means the age of conquest through superior firepower is over. Humans have proven that strategy and coordination are more powerful than numbers or technology. Any species that wants to remain competitive must learn to think like humans. She paused, then added the words that would define galactic politics for generations to come. The humans are not trying to conquer us. They are trying to teach us to play their game. And whether we like it or not, we are all players now. The emergency council session ended with a unanimous vote to establish formal gaming exchanges with humanity. The galaxy was about to learn that peace through superior strategy was more terrifying than any war.